Hi, this is Piero Giorgio, author of Survived Economic Collapse. Today I'm here in Montreal in Quebec, and I'd like to cover with you a little bit of the aspects of this part of the world, Quebec. Is it a good place for prepping and survival? Is it a good place in case of global economic collapse? Well, first of all, let's say something about Quebec. It's like saying North America, it's like saying Canada. This is a huge, huge place. You can see behind me we are actually here in the harbor, and you can see behind the town. Now, first thing you have to say is that this is a huge, huge place. So it's very difficult to talk about Quebec only in general terms. I mean, there's big difference whether you live on the Atlantic coast, whether you live on the Saint Laurent River, whether you live in Montreal, in one of the big cities, or Quebec, or if you live up north in the woods. So it is. One has to keep in mind that there are a lot of differences, and the geography is just immense. Now, generally speaking, one has to look always when analyzing a place at geography, of course. So here, obviously, we are fairly up north, so the seasons can have strong differences. It's cold winters, warm and humid summers. There is a lot of water. Not a lot of high-range mountains, but certainly a lot of wooded areas. And that's important to watch geography. That means that lots of water is good for prepping. Lots of woods and wooden area means a lot of wood that you can use for heating and for sources of energy. And of course, the many rivers can be a very good source of transportation. Indeed, here we are in the old Montreal harbor area. And with canals and this, this harbor can get ships up to the Atlantic, so seas and transport, and this has a strategic importance, and therefore you can imagine that in any bad situations over the longer term, this city, for example, in Montreal as well as the Quebec, could be able to do commerce all over the place of the northeastern North America continent. You can probably commerce with Chicago through the Great Lakes. You can go down to almost the Hudson River. I guess you actually can. And so this has an importance. So long term, it is a good place for geographical reasons. Now, obviously, for the people who prep and prepare for economic collapse, you have to look at the more short-term or medium-term emergencies or crises. So obviously, the second spot is people. Now, first thing about people in Quebec is that there's not many. This is a huge land with not so many people. Of course, the land and food resources of the place, this is not incredibly high-yield crop areas, but because there's a lot of surface, there's a lot of square kilometers available, definitely you can grow a lot of food. And of course, the vastness of the wilderness allows for a lot of hunting, a lot of game, and therefore a lot of sources of food. And if one should also include the rivers and the Atlantic oceans, sea and fish resources. So overall, for food and for geography and for the quantity and number of people, this is a good place. Now, of course, when you talk people, you have to talk about culture and you have to talk about location. Big cities like Montreal, with millions of people, definitely will pose a problem. How do you supply such big cities? How are people going to react? So the good thing here is that the culture of, especially the old people, the old families, the people who have been here for a few centuries and many generations, they still have this culture of pioneers. People moved away from very rich France to move in that part of the world, and suddenly this is hard winters, harsh environment. You have to work hard to survive the long winters, and so you have a mentality of people who are innovative, who are hardworking, and definitely still up to a few, very few generations ago, had to work hard to get along in life. So this is a very good aspect of culture. Now, of course, we live in a multicultural, in the international world, and there are people from all over the world who moved here, a lot from Haiti, from Arab countries, from all parts of Europe. There's a lot of mixity. It's actually a pleasant multicultural city, Montreal, because people are also fairly peaceful and quiet and not violent in their attitudes. Of course, that may change when things are difficult, but at least today, we can see that it's a pleasant place of the world and a fairly peaceful place to live. So it is a good place to prepare. Now, of course, when you look at the culture, again, because of the wilderness, there is a culture of hunting, there is a culture of storing food for the winter, there is a culture of having wood ovens and wood heating in the towns, in the countryside, not so much in the city. The city suffers from the same illnesses and problems that every city in the world has, which is reliance on a very complex supply system. And so the cities like Montreal and in some ways Quebec or Gatineau or Trois-Rivières, in a way, will suffer, but they're not that big. So to be honest, they're not huge cities except Montreal, which is a huge conglomeration. Energy is another element. So sure, electric grid has been improved since the last cuts of power. And of course, there is a lot of hydroelectric production. And the good news, I think, is that they're cutting down on reliance on nuclear power. In fact, they are shutting down the nuclear power plant, which is a good thing in case of an accident or in case of a global collapse, where maybe the shutdown of those reactors is not possible, and therefore prone to accident and pollution. So that is very positive that this place has a lot of hydroelectric power. For much more mundane energy sources, there's wood, as I said. You can heat your house and definitely use a lot of the wood resources that are abundant in this part of the world. So in terms of energy, it is good. In terms of defense, well, there's good and bad with almost everyone having a gun. And especially a hunting gun or hunting rifle here in this part of the world. The gun laws are fairly okay. It's not very strict, but it's not very liberal either. You can basically buy a lot of things legally, and you can get a lot of things. Of course, there are some restrictions, especially in high-capacity magazines, which I think is a pity, but it is quite good. In terms of social bond, which, for those who have read my book, you know how important that element is for preparation. Well, I guess you suffer the same thing as you have in most of the Western world. In the cities, you don't know your neighbor. Okay, people are friendly and polite in Montreal, but when things will get tough, because you don't know people, it's going to be very hard to connect when people will be hungry and cold. However, in the countrysides, I've visited a few friends here. I must say that the social links and the social bonds is very important, and it's also a country where the reputation that you have does still matter. I like that, and I think it is very important that people maintain and try to maintain a good reputation. Of course, there are unique problems in this part of the world that don't exist elsewhere. For example, the tensions between English-speaking Canadians and the French-speaking Quebecois, the French-speaking Canadians. Also tensions between the Indians, the local Native American tribes and settlements and reservations, and the people of Canada. There is also independence movements that want independence, and that can create tensions, that can create turmoil, although I do think that these are fairly small and fairly peaceful compared to other countries around the world. So all of these elements have to be taken into account if you plan to either move into Canada, into Quebec, or even also if you are living already here and you want to prepare properly. So I would advise to people, a lot of people ask me, I live in France, should I move to Quebec? And I always say, well, where do you live in France? If you're in a big city, maybe that's a good idea, but also I say to people, well, move where you feel at home, where you feel good. Just don't move because you think it's going to be better. If you are going to be the foreigner, you're going to be the stranger. So whether you are North African, from the Caribbean, or from France, and you speak French and you want to move here, yeah, overall, my gut feeling would be it's a good idea. But remember that you have to do a lot of work, a lot of effort to fit in, to get to know people, to prepare properly, and to bring something, not just be another guy who comes here and becomes a parasite. You have to commit and bring. Otherwise, people will not help you when it's tough. So it is a beautiful place of the world. It is a very nice area. I actually like the cold winters myself. So for me, okay, minus 30 Celsius, it's cold, but it's bearable if you're prepared. but that again, that's my culture. That's who I am, and I guess the people from the northern parts of the world understand that. If you're from the south part of the world or equatorial part of the world, the winters here can be pretty brutal. So perhaps you have a better strategy going to some place where you fit better. Anyways, Quebec is a good place. It's a very good place. And I'm going to interview in French, if you follow my YouTube channel, some people who are preppers and who are living here. So keep tuned. And don't forget to connect on my Facebook page, on my YouTube channel, and to get more of these video blogs and information